A very good morning to everyone. Today, on behalf of Venerable Khenpo Khalsang Gyaltsen, our abbot, we are delighted and honored to welcome His Eminence Ngor Tartse Ken Rinpoche to Tseching Kunchabling, the seat of the Sakya Domo Podrang in the Americas. Welcome also to the Venerable Khenpo Pema Wangdak and the other respected people who have joined us today, both in person and around the world. We have long hoped for this day. His Eminence Ngor Tartse Ken Rinpoche is one of the senior throne-holding abbots of Ngor Ewamchuden Monastery in Mandawala, India. And he is a great scholar and meditation master. He is the spiritual heir to the throne of Ngorchen Kunga Zangpo, the great 15th century Sakyapa saint, who founded Ewamchuden Monastery, which to this day is a great pinnacle of sutric and tantric study and practice. To be a Ngor abbot, as Ngor Tartse-Ken Rinpoche is to be the epitome of scholarship and meditative realization. Today, Khenpo Khalsang Gyaltsen has requested His Eminence to explain to us some of the great deeds of Ngorchen Kunga Zangpo and the tradition of scholarship and tantric practice that he established and is carried down in Ngor Ewamchuden to this day. And in the afternoon, he has requested His Eminence to bestow the famous Sakyapa mind training teaching, parting from the four attachments. Today, we're also grateful for the translation of Venerable Khenpo Pema Wangdak and for all of us who have this precious opportunity and all of those who are joining us online here today. Now we will proceed with the preliminary prayers in the Tibetan language and then request Rinpoche to kindly bestow the teaching.
Page number 15. Kanshi Janjo Shewai Tundun Dude Bunje Sadan Kalai Kunja Doje Dundun Dane Kolo Medan Ridan Kare Tive Chabeba Zujo Nambai Duje Dobde Medo Daje Janjo Dojira Zuban Chambe Duje Lebroi Pamje Zobe San Kanyen de langue jan soin que je shenje de le samdan jo wai bunzo be chanjo dambrai to je se sayan nambai to do chendan suriya le do shen sodan zunde gombran samden sherai ta je paro chinzo je zan dogen tamboy na jiden ke bai tamje Donam Shindo Dobai Mude Jabai Tadon Tele Judia Dembai Nime Vishan Tele Nambai Gundo Milo Vesalai Jalai Daja Cheji Sorai Singe Dalarje Jiden Daba Tandai Jajo Kubai Jalai Lama Wadai Tobai Game Dograi Dan Tashon Jebai Nezo Tabai Tobai Teda Gin Cheje Pamse Jelai Cheje Janjo Jonyen Dove Denze Ngosai Shebe Shile Mando Wakusho Dame Baba Nije Kuso Mise Bai Kela Pembai Chawai Gurman da jo je zo wan gong bo je lai da ja. Ya wen du de do wa da mu de ma le pam je. Nian de lo ma da me do ja se dang ba lun de. Den de le zo do wa nam ke je yuan de de nian. Chang jo le do jo ba da la yan je lai da ja. Cheje shenen jambe ya loma sharan da de chambai jasan tambara je samshe sushe te som cheje yende meje ge sheje yende tonwe kyare shave sise je pemo ninje vusra cheda wadan jinye cheje nambai kunye Shebe tele de shendo Dubai Lamai shajarya Param shimbe donje le dom Chamden zobe sanje Dubai Dove kunje nyodo Dubai Shom Balden zave lamai rimbo Lagi chiwa pemen den shon Kadin jimbe gone jeson Kusun tu yang ordo sa do so Ganga ita jem maro japa Niman sune ya ganyan jen Yemelinga Rabge Tomanda Dodo Wanjo Dala Geja Sonam Pamele Do Shinkimbe Yisheraki De Salai Chijaba Sanan Zemo Laza Sa Inchanam Gunje Dinye Sangai Jaza Paran Doje Zimbai Gunje Ze Tabai Jazen Laza Sa Shisha Tamje Sebech Dogen gele dobe doje zen samyen dele zebe tonga jamge lame shabla gija zain taden gundo sambo namban sobe dendre tamje kemban zamlen dembe dabo ngesa cheja babe shabla soande doju gunje jaso lechon songa ishen nebe gaden Pende bajo sambo joja bam balde lami shabla soa de jajin sonam lodorabye deshe sora singe ngaroi lome rida tata tazeba toden kare jawan de Jagam chome yambe me so shende sone namge tale kumban cheze tile jowe lo sa jase shabla so ante saman jave chelab jaso modo yishe no bole land Pende jabe sa jamba nga chan chimbe shabla so ante ngawan la e kinze nube so kune gawe to so lebe sanama ishe chodra jamba kunge chen shabla so ante jawe ishe chide kimbe mase diye veke nawa tende apade chen sa jamba Kunga lode shabla so de ain tashun de pema garai chelen judo chige tsuki inche temba pege sajam palde lame shabla so de ngawan la ye return jambe yan todo ngada kare save Saye rebe wancho kancheng Yabje dorje changla soa de nga wancho jaya sajam Kola de tre nyingye dampes Inche shetan dube jatsen Gege dencho lama soa de nga wan kenge jatsen dewe Chencho sumden dondo rimchen Laya Gavya Bapalin Chole Namja Chinza De Ngage Wambo Chelai Tolai Shalote Chimbo Jewe Shemben Tele Chocho Jizem Nimbo Dinzin Chola Soa De Jampe Yanda Niso Mejem Chembe Jengo Chashe Rabzo Palden Demba Sambo Soa De Om Benda Bume Aum She Yon Soda Om Jin Se Je Sa She Om Benza Rege Aum Che Jare Goye Ge Goye Viso Re Jabare Ra Sha Lo Ban Bo Lon Zambo Le No Palanch Chan De Mi Nye Le Dan Le Ba Ngaya Da Ngaya Yen Den Da Lam Chun Do Da Me Nyen Da Da Me Nyen Jen Da Rinpoche Ripo Pasan Jishi Daje Yapa Mamo Baya Lodo Kolo Rinpoche Nubo Rinpoche Sumo Rinpoche Lambo Rinpoche Tacho Rinpoche Mabe Rinpoche Dere Jimboye Pumbai Keba Mai Tiawam Kara Mai Dube Mai Medo Mai Marme Mai Ticham Nieman Dawa Rinpoche Don Jole Nambaja Yasen Lada Mia Pajo Punson Sopa Masawa Tini Dusum Sanje Tamji Yengo Sumya Palyala Tambi Shanga Nani Samu Shue Yendo Uwaj Tushin Dewe Dendo Shasa Shine Chinje Lado Zon Simje Namje Samba Loye Jeda Jeda Chijoin Demoin Debai Cheje Golo Gordo
Kangi Shapen Sapen Te Chepan, Jinen Namre Kodam Laye La, Michi Jinga, Tumba Shakye, Setan Lomanan Che La, Nkwen Chang, Eom Choden Doche Purando, Jave Longden Sanjin Tempe Pa, Kanjin Kiro Kunje Sujin Cho, Ngorchen Doche Chang Lo, So Kanshi Se Cho Rangshir Rablan, Mendara Dan Larjen Nujen Dan, Tenga Nurgo Jem Ba Se Sawan Nepe Lunam Kanyen, Kanjere Neba Jero Sherab Doga, Ribbon Zimba Kan Yimba, the Datam Jen, Tarba Tampe, Gujira Sunye Chin, the Chish. Lada Lami Miam Ji, Wambo Dan, Jajan Lasso Chidi, Jolan Chawan Chepan, Sanja Sura Rabdo Shishin, the way Jujuba. The Dajiji Tambe Sunye Chin and the Shish, Kanda Juju Tongi Chidan, the Sheloman Jurba, Kansuda. Tendra Tumba Chidi Charbechin, Yambranda Bandam Chen, the Shish. Like a Tandudan the Jenka, Dugunda Mi Kenam. Doa Ginjan Danam Chutamban, Damje Kedon Dagi Chude. Malasota, Toma, Lindy Samala, and Nadrichan, somebody touched the issue.
First of all, I'd like to say good morning and greetings to everyone.
Ani Tarenga Arila Chatamu Kabla, and then to Shin Punjab, Charge Chumanga, Shitaki Kausam, which is
I feel very fortunate and very grateful to be able to come as part of my first visit to the United States here at the holy site, the Zechon Kunjapling Monastery.
Kansana Dindegi Combat and Natamga, Comatition Tochi Chanchimbogi and the Chatam Zebagi, members of the Chin of Chimbuchi. Yamba Indus and Tadela Chadu Chomata, the Nane Dane, Chu Chiegi, and then the Cock of Chon, cutting shoe years.
I'd like to express my thanks to this honor that I have to come here at a site which was founded under the wishes of His Holiness Sakyatism and blessed by him here, and also to have the honor of giving the Dharma teaching today is extremely an honor for me, and thank you for that.
Today in the Tachidan and Dela Jamgo Koma, number Lodar and Shetos Pevi Yore, Teve Masabet, in the Kaju catching for Nangi Yore, but the day in Dutan, the con number Kajuatan, Kalum number Tanzuya, Semla Chang, Lalenta to Yeti, Ketchumure de Yore.
We know that His Holiness has been teaching length and width and many other teachings, profound teachings. I'd like to encourage all of you to uphold and treasure the teachings and put your effort in application or in practicing those teachings in your life.
Dendere dene talenga ne chonde ki chudo ne Ngorchen Doji Chanchimbo ne Kor Senamendo, Namdar Senamendo, Dende Talo Juda Chitis Shero Chison Ashin Chene, Ninge Dekor ne Shuel Betsunchi Yensra.
As requested, I will put my best effort to say a few words on the life and the story or life story of the Ngorchen Kunga Zangpo.
Dende inba yendo ta chidane kenamba ma jemba yo mare kachu karishu ba yina ngondu ya kunong kunju de remba ya bosal da de pe masu ke chimbure de yo.
As you're all aware that in order to receive Dharma teachings, it's very important as a reminder to maintain a proper mental attitude.
Kaya sana ngarang zo maung pala kante yongi yemendi tante kunong la da legi yo resro.
It's essentially because what happens in the future is based on our present attitude and motivations.
Timba yendo tanda ne ya kunong sangbo chang ku ju de shiragi ke chimbure de yo resro.
So therefore, it's important for the future is to start our moments of this very moment to have a proper attitude and motivation.
Tende dang ngarang zo te pa chimbu yendo zane ane miyo zo de ane tarba dang tamje kimbe koban tobe chedo ngende negi chu nyingi yo ten samluchi kerwa.
To maintain a proper attitude, then one of the comprehensive attitude will be, and are encouraged to do so, is that this teaching I'm receiving is for the sake, for the benefit, for the eventual freedom and the enlightenment for all sentient beings.
Tende ta chidane ngochen tochi changi koro ngen shuba ina shu shinye yo mare la ane shu tuye yo mare se ta jechen tama kong namba ki lo ju dan tenzorwa.
Now, to fully explain the life story and his teachings on Ngorchen Dorje Chang, it's very challenging and it's very difficult to comprehensively to teach.
Tende re de ina ya ta ngarang zo su da su ina ane lo ju dan namtar denzo ya ane hako ya de ke chimbu inba yindu zane ta namtar yito lo yo ba ina de ane soso ke nawe tuyo yo ba ina ta tende ki kor ke senamindo tende kor kashi shugin yiswa.
Since it is very important to learn to know of the biography, the life stories of the master, I will be happy to, based on the oral tradition as well as in the history books.
Tenya ta chidane nga ngor ki da ngorchen tochi changi tensa sungye ke lame tesu lebyo du ta tende ki kor ngorchen tochi changi lo ju re ngor ewan be lo ju re denzu sheye di denzu lengen singa re de do swa.
As the lineage holder of great Ngorchen Dorje Chang, it is also my responsibility to know and also to explain his life story.
Tende imba yindu zane de ngen de ki namdar shuye de lengen rawi han re de do swa.
So that's my duty too.
Tengarangi kari shimba de ji pa do du ji.
And I'll tell you the best that I know of.
Ne ngorchen tochi chang shungye de ta ngarang zo ane satya pala ane penchung zebar chebe kenchu yobe na ne nga la keba kunga namnyin se ne ngorchen kunga sangpo tang zongba kunga namjaya se ne nishu yore de na ne ya jang ngorchen tochi chang kunga sangpo de yore eswa.
It's well known in the history of Sakya Buddhist tradition that the ones who have a master over both Sutra and Tantra are called two Kungas. And one is this Ngorchen Kunga Zangpo, and the other is Ngorchen Kunga Namgyal.
Tene chidane ngorchen tochi chang kunga sangpo ane ngarang zo dan doye nang doye ane longden nang shawa ta longden yoba tende ki jechen tamba shenda mandawa chi re de yore es pena tamcho pema karwe nang do ngen ni kelong kendo meba chi kunga sangpo nga yi chun zimba deshe chewa tuchu chu jene maung tuji chena kyalwa gyuru sene tene tende ki doye nang do tende longden nang shawa jechen tamba chi re de yore eswa.
Ngorchen Kunga Zangpo is said to be prophesied in the sutras of what Buddha taught in one of the prophecy that is the sutra called Pemakarpo, the Lotus Sutra. There, it is indicated that in a future time in the northern region, there will come a Kunga Zangpo, an individual by the name of Kunga Zangpo will come and appear.
Tene Ngorchen doji changeda gyuba dama sona tongju dawdi ane chongro lui kyanzen shungede da gyabu chenpo chige gyuba chongro gyuba re de yore yasirwa.
The hereditariness, his ancestors can be traced back to the royalty called Chokro Lui Gyatsen.
Tene mizang cheba ina mizang gyuma da shire de yore yasirwa.
And his own family is just a regular, ordinary family.
Ane mizang gyuma chene tene rimba shindo ya sajya la ya chane ane sajya lagan chenpo la lemne dachin shidobe dachin latang sene ane shido latang la ya soja pyungi tang la lepsong re yasi yabdi.
And as a young boy, he happens to visit in Sakya, where at the time of Dakchen Shitopa and Shito Labrang, and he has the opportunity to be what we call tea server.
Ane tende chene soja pyungi tang la lep chene ane pe gyuring buddhina shu chene tene pa dachin shido latang ki soja wa sene kong la mingyang tende taosong re yasi yabdi.
So his main job happens to be in the monastery. He served for a long time. Because of that responsibility, he also earned the name called the tea server.
Tene ikja khashen nangla ane pensang tuba yuan sene yabdi chene tende shungi yore yasirwa.
Some texts also talks about another ancestor called Pensang Shigayunden.
Pensang tuba yuan sene. Now
Pensang
yabdi chene.
Tubayunden is the name of another ancestry.
ane one cheba ina yabdi ki chen ane taben kunga rinchen shungi dere de yore yas dakchen.
His father is one of the Dakchins, the Sakya Dakchin, and his name is Tawen Kunga Rinchen.
Tene kongi ane da kong da jen na sadye tinzen chudun ba yin sare. Dakchen taben kunga rinchen shungi de sadye tinzen chudun ba.
Yes. Now, as you all know, His Holiness Sakya Tizens the Tawen Kunga Rinchen is the 17th of His Holiness, the Sakya Tizens.
Dende ki ane se su ane chelu chidong nidya tyaju tyanye lo la kuchong ba re yasirwa.
Did you count it?
Tyaju tyanye.
And the history goes back to he was born in 1282. That's about 800 years ago. Yeah.
Ane de lo la ane kuchong ne tene ta khoran zo dende chende pa nya tene ta khoran zo rigyu de ta dajen la dang soja shungi yimba yindu zane yab terang ki samlo la ta pugu jeba ina ngara na shin chene rimba shin ta sajja dajen ki soja pyungen ta la shagin yin sampe samlo dende yore yas yab dirwa.
So his father, one of the aim was so that the son become work for the monastery as the tea server as a young boy.
Dende yindu zane dende gonglo chungni zu yimba dende shebi kapso dende ta dajen dege ta pise ko ya soja pyungen la chena diksa re samne tangbo ya soja ke ane pyuya ki chabing denzo kyage yume taya la ya ane korangi to chung ya kya chuba re se ta soja kya ta ngonro ta ma son ko.
It is said that as to train, because that little boy needs to be trained, and so to train him to lift a certain weight, and he trained him to lift a certain rocks, just to able to train him to how to hold the tea kettle when you serve the tea.
Dene dende chena ne korange ne dende chena ba ta che che du chane dene Ngorchen ki ta gungnu chungne re de kong ki thula ta di debu de chi chune ma chung are se ta di nga yong sa ma re se no kong me ba me bi nam ju shi u tem re se.
Yes. And as of course, such a child is the child showed a disinterest, a strong disinterest, and is observed by Ngorchen Kunga Zangpo.
Dene chene shu du chane de korang ta bugu chung chung ina bugu chung chung zemu che namba den zo ya pa chu che wa da wo dang ege te wa da wo dang dene kar se lag bar do ne ritu ma loma kyo ma ku chu je nge ge ze dang do mang bu nang ge yo sa re se.
As a little boy, his interest seems to be more drawn to the Dharma, like teaching Dharma, or practicing Dharma, or painting along the line of Dharma. Especially has to do with the ritual of what we call Pranashawari purification or sanctification ritual. And these are some of what little boy's mind is so drawn to.
Dene chene ze chene shu du chane dene ta korang ki dando korang de cha chang go re se na mang bu ji she du chane de korang kyune korang tuk zhou ma chung dene che du dene Shimba Tajen Jimba, Tata Chen, the Tata Temas, Kongi, Tatiran, the Nemaji, Ko, Deba Mindu, Deba mentioned to the Uzu Kabu Yomare, the Korangi, Ngorchen Kumjechi Yosare, Kopa Chatan, the Ngorchen Kotakoran Church and the Doji Yosare, Paja Yosare, the Chuba Chechu shows in the Sumba Yasava.
So one of the adductions, brothers, notice this. This is not something Ngorchen as a little boy is interested at all. Instead, he suggested that this boy, Ngorchen as a young boy, should be taught Dharma, and there is a great possibilities that you can learn Dharma.
Anu dende chene ne sungdu chane dene korange te na shin chene ne dende je chene dene yabdi gi ane Ngorchen torji changla ne chen dang rabjung ki chen ji ta na yor se de karsa kunga jigje re je de kunga sangbu re mi kanje chen ji ta na je ta kanje ko chue je rabjung che ya la ten ke bare sro.
So his father from then have decided to really guide him along the line of Dharma. Even gave him a name, Kunga Jigse, a name that was before Ngorchen Kunga Zangpo.
Ta dende chene da chen na che de Lama Sharjin Ishi Tianzen ten ne Tangpo ke chul ki tomba shu chene de gonglu ni shu zanga pala ne Sharjin Ishi Tianzen ten ne shu bare sro.
So from then on, he get novitiated under the abbotcy of Shachin Yeshe Gyaltsen. All the way he learned, he'd be tutored by Shachin Yeshe Gyaltsen until he was at the age of 25.
Dende chene ten ne shu de do ju menga dan che bala sen sam thar chimba na ne den shen ya ne chu je pal den chutim dang ne sa sang pa ba shu no lo ju la so ba ne kebe ong bo mang bo tem bare sro.
He attended the master Sai Palden Churjin and Randavashuna Loto, and among many other masters.
Daga na shin ya den sang je pala so ba ta khedu mang bo ten ne donga rine dan che bala sen sam thar chimba na bare sro.
He studied under great master Yakten Sangyapel and many other countless of masters and excelled himself in the learnings of both sutras and tantras. And especially he received teaching of Lamde in its entirety from the Mahasiddha Buddha Shri.
Lamde sen ne shido latang du shu ne ba lamde la sen sam kya chim na ma res ko ne tu sam shi kom kyu chen.
Since then he meditated and reflected for extensively on Lamde teachings.
Ta nang sha ne korum se da pen ju khang ji yo sa sa ja la te le ya pen ju khang la ba lo mang de rin la de ne chu bong no to di dong da ha sam sung do den de la sen sam zen ne shu ba le sro.
Benzo Khan Tsen Khan.
고름 벤주
Gorum also. And there, at his lifetime, we have a library that has more than 1,000 scriptures, so the volumes of library, called the special Gorum library, and he studied extensively and read and studied all of this basically available texts there. After all the lifelong of studies that he has accomplished, he has now embarked on this mission of that he wants to practice and apply in meditation the Dharma that he have learned, and he was looking for a very appropriate place where he can settle down to meditate. For a long time, as he was looking for, Ngorchen is unable to find appropriate place. And finally, at one time in his dream, he had this dream saying that there will be a prophet. In the dream, it was prophesied that someone called Tundup will show you the right place. Very next day, someone from Chumik, there's a little branch monastery nearby, a person came. Attendants of the Ngorchen reported to Ngorchen that there's someone from Chumik has arrived to seek audience, and Ngorchen immediately asked him to let him in. And as soon as he arrived in his room, he asked, "What is your name?" And sure enough, he said his name is Tundup. Then they had a good conversation, and he also asked him if you know of any nearby place where it is appropriate to establish the monastery. And he immediately responded saying, yes, there is one, and a very good one, and that name is called Ngor. And sure enough, the place that he showed is exactly what he wishes to have. Every necessary requirements are there for any purposes of studies, practice, especially the practice of the Vajrayana. At the time, when he was deciding to make a decision, he was only 48 years old. So, Tibetan calendar 17, the Rapchung, Western calendar 1429th. So 1429, for the first time, the Ngor monastery was founded.
Then the Ngor singing the Sajaki Mingre de Yores, Ming Todan, the Tangama Koran to Loju Tola Sedu, and in Dela, Yang in Zingmoshon and Zingne, the Pao or Senate, then about Ngor singing the Ming Dinner Chasoma.
The name of the Ngor monastery is literally based on the name of the place itself, which is Ngor, and that Ngor sound has no meaning except it has to do with its name origin, like two yaks were in clashing each other, and as part of their making sound when they're fighting, that has to do with that kind of sound, which later became the name of the place.
Then Eomse Eddie Karuchungi Yores and I share of Tongbani Chungi Yores, Eddie.
And of course, Ngor monastery is the full name, so Ngor Evam Chodan, which the A has to symbolize this or significance of emptiness.
I mean, one dig, that what dig, Tap Dewa Chambo Chungi Yores, Tap Dewa Chambo.
And the wam, A and wam, the wam part of the syllable has to do with the skillful in means.
Then dig, one dig on the what dig on Legor de Karuchungi Yores Lavayana, Tapshi Sungde Chungi Yores, Tapshi Nimi Chumberjaba.
Now, if you were familiar with the writing of Ewam in Tibetan as well as in English, there would be a little dot over the wam, dot on the top, the traditional written. That dot symbolizes the non-duality of emptiness and the skillful in means.
And
this is how, briefly to speak, how it came about the monastery. Yes. While he established the monastery, then he would then teach all the neighboring areas, Sakya and Cham and so forth. He visited Sakya, the Lhasa and Chang area for 2 times. First, he taught, basically, he essentially taught extensively the first visit. The second time visit was less of a teaching, but more to pay respect and to all the holy places. While in Lhasa, he offered what we call the golden, in other words, you offer gold plating of the Buddha statue. And other monasteries like Ganden and Tsurpu and all the great monasteries of that time, he went and paid respect. And because of his greatness, his name, because of all the works of teachings everywhere, and because that his name become well known. And back at Ngor Monastery, he then taught extensively especially he taught to his next in line, Michin Sambachambo, all the extensive teachings of the Lamde.
Tende Zaneda, Gera Chumbuchune, Shea, Horta, Dogam Choso, Tendishunga Mambuchune, Pemnia, Chuchini Mambunao, Reserva.
Is popularly spread throughout Tibet, especially among the Hors, which is usually refers to the Mongols, and also the eastern Tibet of Dokam. And he traveled, and then many people asked for his visit, and he traveled those and taught Dharma. And because of that, from all direction, all kinds of invitation has been offered. There in the history books, we see that even in the far east, western Tibet, Ngari regions, he went several times. Particularly in the the Mustang, modern day Mustang area, Ngorchen, Kunga, Zangpo came 3 times. First, he visited 1427. And the second one, the very next day, the next year, 1428. I'm sorry, it is 1436, the second time. So it's about 9-10 years. And the third is 1447. So it's about every 10 years or so visited. Yes. We can understand about his great master's life because not directly from his right, because there's no self-autobiography, but through the records written by his great disciples, such as Michin Sambachambo, and you can see the life history of Ngorchen Kunga Zangpo. You will see in the Lord Mustang's history where he established the Lord Tubchen monastery, the grand monastery, where in its heyday there are 1,000 monks would congregate there. Especially for the Mustang, is particularly popular and well known, the 3 great Zangpos. This Zangpo is essentially talking about Ngorchen Kunga Zangpo because his name ends. And the king also happens to have a last name, and his minister also. So 3 Zangpos. At those times, the spiritual activities have flourished extensively in Lomantang areas. And then even including the king himself, at the presence of Ngorchen Kunga Zangpo became a renunciate and became monastic.
로주 제도 전에 되는 ngorde chidana saji chode mangbu yorde pöle ya pe masibe paruchula hajangi ta chode mang chawade ngorge chode jangga yimba dendre ge loju chimbu chung yore yesra.
And you will see over the centuries since then, most of the major Shakti monasteries have the presence of the more lineage and more teachings, etc.
Tene ngorchen doji chang kongre ge zo zeba chege tene ngorge tiba nang lo sumre ne chewo jabe kongre ge tende lo so nang ne tene ma rimba chindo ta ngorge kembo rimje pe masibe ane temba chidan chatala kadin chimbo jangi mangbu chung yore yesra.
Ngorchen Kunga Zangpo, while he was alive, he made the rule that the head of the monastery is taken responsibly over the period of 3 years. So every 3 years, the head of the abbacy of the monastery is changed. And since then until now, this great tradition prospers.
Tene ngorchen doji chang chidane ta durab cheba ina durab chubshibe ane shou dawo ta jenga ben go dawo la re do sra. Ngorchen doji chang ka.
So you can see his life story. You can see in the history of the later part of the 14th century and the early part of the 15th century.
Tel habar do ta ngor la lo ta ba ni se lamden na ye ta ngorchen doji chang ge ube de ne ngor ge khenju nam ge lamden na ye de pe masibe ta ya bo na wa cham mai ba tel ya chenye na ne ane pe masibe nyamle ya bo na ne tuba to be lo ju chung ane lo ma ya bo shu de ne chung do pe masibe.
At the Ngor monastery, the Lamde teaching is highly practiced and taught, and over the centuries, there are so many disciples who, based on the practice of the Lamde, have proven themselves and reached the level of siddhi, meaning the realizations.
Tende ne lo ma mangbo chung che tene habar do ta ngor la ya ne kembo ren jen den zo lo sum re che ne ya na ne de lo sum cha do de ane kembo shen ba de ya kume den sa che ne tene labran den zo ya ren ba shin do tene chung yin sa re sa.
It so happened that in Ngor we have a labrang system, and that happens because of after the 3-year tenureship of the abbacy of the Ngor, then they sort of stay out, have a separate, more or less retirement version of it, and that's how the labrangs came about.
Tene indu zane ta ngor ge ane labrang shi se ne luding labrang thazi labrang kangsa labrang pende labrang shi se ne zo labrang shi ji de cha yo re.
So we see there are 4 labrangs: Ngor, Tarze, Kangsar, and Pende.
Tene labrang shi gi na ne cha nga sho da de tharzi labrang re do sra.
The first of the labrang is, earliest one is the Tarze labrang.
Tharzi labrang de tharzi pension nam ga pasang kong da tiba kyo chan ne tene labrang kyo tene da mang che de ngor gi kembo mang che de ya kham chol de ge da kawa chol phem ne da kembo tiba do yo chan tene kham chol phem do yo sa re. Nyam do den jang sa ni ba de kham chol re do sra.
Or Tarze's Kenchen Namba Palsang. When he retired, usually at that time, since now they're retired from the monastery, then they usually travel towards the eastern regions of Kham and then teach Dharma.
Pende chen zeten na ne shu ne tene da ne kar se gore labrang den zo turap chudu be shu de la ba chung sha asra mang che de.
The labrang system, as you can see, towards the end of this 16th century.
Tene ne kar se gore ta tene pa ni ba de ane luding labrang cha do sa ta zi che la.
And second labrang is Luding labrang. It came about.
Then they'll chat them again, they more the can't do juicy balloon, Shajin Kunga Tashi Shuman, chat about the rest and then the Lojuchin on those.
And the Ngor Abbot 14th one, Shajin Kungatashi, is the first one who established the Luding Labrang.
Then Rambashin Kansa Labram Chung those.
Then the third is Kangsar Labrang.
Then Kansa Labram did Durab Chubdum Benama Chung those.
And that happened around 17th century.
Kansa Labram Gichela, then Pendel Labram and the Chung.
And then after that is Pende Labrang.
Tachidan Labran Shitan Kansan Jobjela Soba Mambu Yores, that then so the Chuma Loju, Morjang, Namdar Keva, and Silam Majema Yoma.
So if you read the more extensive life history of Ngorchen Kunga Zangpo, you can see the details, like such as each Labrang has their own other segments of what we call it, different segments of the Labrangs.
Tenechidan Morgida, Kimbo Danzuma, Kimbo Pevdanda Udi, Tawajuma, Chenia, and the Sensam Yabu Tarchimanang, Teni Shishin, Dua Yungita, Tawa, Masibi Senden, Danzolia, and the Dendation to Shabdung, Banang, Kimbo Pevlo, you didn't do.
One of the ways how a young monk can become an abbot usually is most of the Ngor abbots are from just ordinary monks who happens to have a special quality of their motivation, dedicatedness, who then assigned and kind of and also groom them as a shabtung for as the designated abbots, and that's how it evolves.
Then Shabdung said, "The Anzota Mount Bala Kembo Pemge de la Shabdung and Kembu Shabdi Tung to show and send some Nangi in between Shabdung and the show your yes. They are named about the Mount Bala Kembo Pevia.
That the chosen one, the boy who has a promising qualities, will be called Shabtung. Shabtung literally means at the feet of, meaning at the feet of the master. And in other words, he is groomed, and he is a future designate abbot of the monastery.
Then Ladan Shi and Luding Ladan Diani, Shabdung the Samaya, Tongju Ton and Zingi or S. Tajin Shabia Tongju Ton.
A special about Luding Labrang is that it is also done in conjunction with the actual family lineage.
Then Labrang Shimba Danzota, Mancha, Tawa Juma Kona, and Chetine, Yan Susuki, Lamagi, and the Kuju Tende. And the thousand Mandawa Chunga and Zola, Shabdong, Sensu Chenia, Mount Bala Kimbosu, and their Mambu.
Other lamdas, the system is slightly different. Mostly just ordinary monks who prove themselves to be, and or the abbot himself have seen the special quality of a particular monk and are groomed to become the abbot.
Then Labran Shembasum de Tazi Kansa Pendesum de Tene, Lama Kimbo Command and Zohi Yangsi Yins and Etene, Telaya Shabdung Sensunang in the Namabuchum.
There are also happens that some of them also happens to be the designated abbot and become a shabtung part because they have been recognized as some of the reincarnation of previous masters. So this gives you some idea how gives you the life story of the Ngorchen Kunga Zangpo and how the ordinary monk can be the head and be the great master in the monastic system more.
Tene labar do Ngorchen doji jang Kunga sambata ngorge kembo tangbo de indo zane konge lamde jangjang sar kyajul ha sung yore sirwa.
In the lifetime of Ngorchen Kunga Zangpo, he taught 80 times Lamde Dong.
Tene labar do tene ane gyatsulunge tomba jangjang nane ta kongri chidane rabjong yimba masepe rabjong nane tsende nang konge tan duwe dutim denzo migde shinto sunghe ta penang pyo ngor kombala ya shachang lo soba kirme cho pe masepe tim tangbom nangne pe tsende nange ke lama jire de yore esrwa.
The great master Ngorchen Kunga Zangpo is one who, beginning with the basic monastic disciplines, one who is extremely devout in observing every precepts, everything, including anything that are not conducive to the monastic life, such as vegetarianism, such as abstinations. These are highly praised and highly observed.
So chesho de dan duwe labchen de migde shinto sungne dan duwe labchan dan mangawa tsende kora anzo sheza ma chen na namsa pudung yokin ya kyunne manamne pe koran tsende dutim shinto sungne shunge dendregin duwa zimba chimbu chungwa de esrwa.
He has such a high degree of devotion to the teachings of the Buddha called Vinaya, which means the way we live and how we conduct. Every bit of the behavior that Buddha taught, he will observe according to the Vinaya itself, such as not wearing anything that is such as with the sleeves. The monks would, any little details, every bit of this he observed in such a most precious way.
Tene labar do doji tingwe wangshen sa chukchu la zam nawe kone ta miksege ta saage ane nyamne mangbo na yore esrwa.
He also taught extensively, especially the initiation of Vajramala. It's said in his lifetime he taught for those Vajrayana practitioner 60 times.
Tende nawe jumzenge ta konge loma jang semba chimbo shonu gyalcho ta ne karase ore ta chen kunga wangcho ta myujin semba chimbo ta loma yang tene dendan dan dawa tene mangbo chung yore esrwa.
He also have a great disciples such as Ngorchen Kunga Semba Chimbo, Shunu Kunga, the Chen Shunu
Gyalcho.
Gyalcho, etc., and many great, known disciples have appeared.
And then regi ane loma keba samdi mi keba mangbo chung lo juye yore esrwa.
So in the history, you can see that many meditated practice as well as greatly learned disciples he has been able to successfully bring up.
Tene tama ta gongba shenduen do pepe ta gongba zowa de ne gonglo tunju dongan zamla gongba zowa do sirwa.
And in the end, after all the lifetime of service for the benefit of others, he passed away at the age of 75.
Ngorchenge lamde dambu sungwe ne gabsu tene dana loma zowo je tupjen tangdong gyabo re de yore sirwa.
Oh, this is wonderful. One among the great disciples, when he first taught the Lamde in his lifetime, are those master called Tangdong Gyalpo, the Mahasiddha Tangdong Gyalpo.
Ta dende ko na ta ngorchenge sungzom ya pena je dor kiane and da ser ta tyusum je jen ta kanje ngorchenge sungla ya pöshi la cham yore sirwa. Pöshi la chu yore.
Yes. He wrote extensively, and they are all collected in 4 volumes, such as teachings on Hevajra, Dasir, and Gyusum, etc., or 3 tantras, etc.
Tadendegi sumsum pantum never yoretin, then as on the museum Semba Chimbodam, Museum Kunjo Lundula Sovatini, Mordia Camborim Jun, then they send a pachum yoresova.
And through that, and often beginning with the great Ngorchen Kunga Zangpo, then Ngorchen Kunga Hundrup, etc., and the lineage of more monastery, more abbots that happened until now.
Then the Ngorchen Kutsilo, you do it, and there's something in Serva.
For today, this is a short, brief teaching on the life of the Ngorchen Kunga Zangpo. And if you have any question, please, you're welcome to ask.
Sanjay. Shorang up to Nagul.
춘들라마 달라 춘종간이랑 춘들라마 띵들 봐. 콩쿠지 샤주게 같텔라 농대 망국해야 돼. 콩 이걸 보면 당이 자산이 좀 남아. 네, 춘들라마 왜라. 나랑
Papa Jamba Jana Jabala Jan Zala Janya Sada Jaja Tusum Shiba Mea Singyaga Dagia Malia Dada Tamjala Luda Ngaya Tabe Shashia Sambo Shibia Malam Dadagi Jawai Tamje Yijia Wasam Shingya Dunya Lurai Dabai Jawai Kula Radha Chasa Dejadana Dunya Sanjana Sanje Shijia Vina Shubha Tedra Jijayana Malia Bajam Kawaman Dada Ngaba Mise Jazona Yanjaya La Jazona Yawai Gunjayan Arab Jajin Dara Shabbat Tamjan Medo Damba Jawan Damba Dasinya Namda Joban Tujo Arme Jodan de Bedamba Jawan Dada Lani Chabrai Nasa Damba Namda Tijoda Jama Pumare Rai Nyamba Goodbye Jabra Babi Chicken Jawan Dada Lani Chabrai Chabai Gana Lame Yawan Dada Jawa Tam Jalaya Sambo Jala in the bed of Dagi Jawai Kunla Jasa Chabai the Jashadan Demo again Ludang Adan Diji Deba Dagi Jaba Javan Dada Tam Jadagi Sosa Chacha Jawai Guna Sanja Ranja Namda Labda Mila Roy Kunji Sonam Galayan Dada Kunji Jasa Kanam Jojo Zidane Domanum Sanjo Rimba Sanjema Pumbo Dada Dagi Tam Jala Kolo Lana Mebako Yangen Gashe Dada Lando Akula Pisinde Dagi Damaraja Soai Jin Sasa Wadan Jijin Shaba Jisa Iran Gushin Soai Gyawa Jose Dagi Jisa Tamje Dagi Janjo Jingo Debya Sanje Namdan Jojo Yen Zidyan Dana Gasho Choban Kaya Majen Dada Nyoba Samjo Janjo Rimba Sanje Jojo Gale Shinam Jinyan Bandada Jaje Yonso Dabra Yawanda Sanje Sije Rabdo Kanwa Jojo Samjan Kanam Jinyan Dada Dada Nemen Dewa Yondo Kunje Chije Dana Tumbai Jije Rewan Dubai Sanjo Jaba Dane Daji Dawai Gundo Jawa Temple Sarai Gundo Jaba Tado Dane Rabdo Jawa Jawai Kunje Jaso Lobjo Mumbai Jaba Yanso Sojin Sorim Jaba Time Yandaba Tado Manyam Jime Jab Lai Gedan Ludan Jenge Duban Dada Mi Kenam Dawai Kunje Danam Jizamba Tamje Gedo Dagi Chede Chanjo Sene Naya Jema Jen Dibai Gana Dibai Jubada Deda Male So Chang Deda Nima Digiale Namle Do Chen Jiten Do Namso Jidrape Mo Jime Jabashe Yinda Namga Daba Yeso Dunga Do Shiwa Jen Dewa Dalan Do I Kingi Chen Do I Tamje Lani Pemprache Sambo Jaba Simjan Dagi Jatan Tumbra Jo Sambo Jaba Dane Rabde Mohan Kaba Kundo Jabra Shiba Jatan Sumbarkan Tada Dane Dado Dobasha Lidangana Yini Sim Jaba Dada Molam Chidoje Dala Pimbra Deve Toboda Sambo Jaba Rabda Tada Dayan Dada Jabasha Tada Dagi Namya Yemi Sanjay Shiji Kurven Gombo Nam Uson Tato Dagi Mo Gaba Gundo Mijo One Dada Lion Chaba Jajriki Jawanam Jetambi Sanjo Chaba Gundo Naraja Sambo Chaba Nambra Jawaya Mo Gaba Gundo Chaba Shiba Tamje Tuyang Kurwana Sonami Shada Nemi Tadan Shara Dinze Namdada Yende Kunje Misen Sadojo Duje Dana Dunyas Sandhya Samje Meja Sanje Na Sanje Shije Vena Shobala Chanjo Chaba Chachenta Teta Male Damje Choso Yanta Sam Kala Tisum Sinyi Sanje Jaso Shinam Jaso Dankaba Jaso Chachen Rabdo Sanje Yawai Gaya Yala Namda Bando Gunje Samba Chashin Sanje Sunla Tato Chup Tisum Shebe Jawai Damje Da Kula Sunara Toko Teta Kiyan Suyan Misala Loye Topye Dajan Rabdo Chup Mohon Kapa Damje Kichi Chike Dajan Zobaje Kayan Kapa Tisum Sete Da Kichi Chashe Jine Shup Tisum Shebe Mi Singe Kan Teta Kichi Chila Daki Tado Teta Gine Jaya La Jumai Jube Namda Topi Kayan Tisum Daki Shingyo Ban Teta Duche Tendo Ngombra Tup Teta Male Chunam Jawan Daki Shinam Kalajo Kaya Machen Teta Chanjo Rimba Sanja Kolo Nyangen Deba Rabdo Shidad Gumbo Kunje Tundo Kundo Nyebe Suto Tonanda Kune Gawe Tepe Tomnanda Kundo Jaba Chamba Dagi Kune Gawe Son Chaba Meba Jubi Shedo Sharab Tatan Tinsento Chanjo Tona Yanda Dubache Leje Tona Yoso Nimon Tona Kundo Zombrache Tuje Tona Tomerach Sambo Chepe Dane Sopaji, Shinam Jaso Nambrata, Simchen Jaso Dane Nambrato, Chanam Jaso Rabdo, Ishe Jaso Rabdo, Toprache, Chapa Jaso Nambrata, Molam Jaso Yosos, Anye Jaso Rabdo, Jeje, Kamba Jaso Mije, Kayan Desum Shebe Jawai, Chancho Chepe Molam Cheda, Sambo Chepa, Chancho Sanye, the Kyan Dagi Malesum. Yawa kunje seje to wo ba kange mene kundo sa she ja ke ba de da tamje rab do ngo le da nga da e ja nam da je ja ba nam da shin nam yo da wa sam bo ke ba chen da wa de da da ja de da sum ba kune ke wa sam bo che be che jam ba je ne ma lam che pra mo ga ba kundo mi jo wa te cha wa ma le so pra je cha ba da ne se India Namjan Siso Meprasho Chopa Semia Pala Nene Teta Topa Tamchesa Namgia Tado Jopa Zizamba Samja Malu Taya Deshin Zizam Leda Nyamon Taki Molam Taya Tesamo Kaya Chuchu Shinam Taya Parin Chenche De Jawan Hada Me Deve Chanam Jashingi Dunya Kaba Pua Kangi Jesu Rame Jilinji Zayan Deba Yebana Sonam Tambi Chodo Di Yoro Kangi Sancho Mana Tene Ngeson Tene Topo Ngeba Poai Nawan Tae Tean Tenyo Don Teta Nyeba Ramye Dewa So Mise Tenyan Kundo Sambo Tean Chindawan Teta Rimpo Meto Tishinju Tseme Ngapa Taki Tim Kangi Mishe Wangi Chebana Te Sambo Cheban Yado Male Yaso Chawasho Ishe Danya Sudan Senam Daridan Kanto Nandan Dudam Mutia Mambo Timedo Jidia Sumbo Kunanchu Chanjo Shawa Dundo Tenyondo Sone Sumche Penche Tedo De Chanjo Sanje Kon Dunam Dedan Jaba Tamjedo Kaya Sambo Jaba Ding Chawa Tanya Dodam Lonayan Ten Chanjo Jala Sanye Majin Jamba Bave Jidra Jambada Kundo Sambo Teyan Tishin Teda Kunje Jaso Dale Jawa Deda Tamje Rato Tesum Shebe Jawa Tamje Ngwa Kala Chodo Ngabade Dagi Kewe Sambo Jeje Rabdo Ngwaji Tani Chewe Tuje Yurbana Deba Tamje Tani Chis Musum Nawan Tae Dedon Dewa Chenji Shinda Rabdo Keso Nene Malam Dida Jantam Je Male Ngunto Kyuvasho Deda Male Jiten Jeje Sunjen Pemba Ji Jewe Jengo Sashin Kawadra Pema Tamba Shinto Lunden Bayan Dagi Dedo Sho Tene Dagi Lunden Rabdo Ne Tuba Mambo Jawa Loye Doje Chocho Namsoya Sumje Nala Pemba Mamboy Gyawa Junse Dagi Chisamba Tene Dwe Malam Gyawana Kije Chike Kaya Sambo Chapa Dinge Besunam Taye Tamba Kanto Dwe Dungo Choy Baba Mebe Nera Tobasho Malam Jabo Dida Taye Doa Kunla Pinji Kundo Sambo Jembesun Tobo Sho Sanje Kusum Nyebe Chalabdan Junye Mejo Dembe Kinde Meje Dembe Chalab Jechida Ngo Malam Tapse Dubai Sho.
Thanks to His Eminence Tartse Ken Rinpoche for this wonderful and very inspiring recounting of the holy deeds of Ngorchen Kunga Zangpo and explanation of the Ngor tradition. We pray that the teachings of this great holy master may continue to flourish throughout the world and spread ever wider and farther, especially to this new land. And that all of the upholders of the tradition of Ngorchen Kunga Zangpo may have long holy lives and their teachings flourish. Today at 3 o'clock in this afternoon, New York time, please, all of you, join us again for Rinpoche's bestowal of the Parting from the Four Attachments teaching. Thank you again to Khenpo Pema Wangdok for your kind translation. This morning's event is now auspiciously complete.
Sungai Shin Nube Gadinje Bende Bajosam Palle Lami Shabla So and there.